Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that are on my August TBR. It's going to be interesting to see what I end up getting to because the end of August is when school starts, and I'm a teacher, so I'll need to do some sort of prep, especially since everything is moving online. But I still wanted to put together a TBR, and as usual, it probably has way too many books on it, but I had a good time putting it together. I'm going to start off talking about a couple of books that I'm going to continue reading. They aren't necessarily a part of any kind of readathon or challenge or anything like that. I'm not planning on finishing them, but I do want to work some on them. The first one of those is Intersectionality as Critical Theory by Patricia Hill Collins, which I've mentioned before. I haven't actually started this quite yet, but there are still several days in July when I'm filming this, and I am planning on starting it this month. So this one I will continue on into August and possibly later, just depending on how dense it is. And then next I have Nobody Passes, which I started in the month of June, and I am intentionally taking my time with. This is an anthology that talks about queering the lines of gender as well as race, ability, and more. So I will be reading bits and pieces of this. Next, I want to talk a little bit about rereads. There are a couple of books that I really want to reread sometime soon, so I think I'm going to choose one of the two that I'm going to be mentioning. I either want to reread Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which I read the audiobook of a while back and absolutely adored. So I really want to be able to read this on the page. Another book that I'm considering rereading is The Seep by Hannah Porter, and it totally blew my mind. This is the best book that I've read all year. So I plan on rereading it either this month or next month. Next, I'll move on to events and readathons. I will be putting links in the description to all of the people hosting all of these things. There are several interesting looking book clubs that I would really like to get to, but I'm just going to talk about the three with picks that I am most likely to get to this month. The first is the Envy Book Club, which will be reading The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke and Emezi. I think I've mentioned this before in probably the June wrap-up because I read Pet and Freshwater in the month of June and gave them both 5 stars. They were so good, so I am very, very ready for this other Akwaeke and Emezi book. I'm also going to be participating in the No Name Book Club. Specifically, I'm going to be reading Playing in the Dark by Toni Morrison. This book was actually chosen by Brianna's Library, and I absolutely love their YouTube channel. I've talked about it a few times, so that's super exciting. And then the final book club book that I'm going to mention that I plan on reading is the pick for the Krusty Club, which is run by Chanel. And the pick for that is Radio Silence, which was sitting at the very top of my YA TBR, so I'm pretty stoked about it. I bought this basically immediately after I read Heartstopper, so I'm excited for it. Next, I'll be talking about my TBR for the Heart-a-thon. This readathon sounded super cool because the way that it's done, they intentionally put it to where you could do fiction or nonfiction, which is really great. But also it seems to be really focused on where character and theme intersect, which is absolutely my thing. Now, Heart in Heart-a-thon not only stands for characters who have a lot of heart, but it is an acronym, and each piece of the acronym is basically a challenge for the readathon. So you're supposed to read a book with a hero in education, a hero in art, a hero in resistance, and a hero in technology. I have 4 books. One that fits each of those prompts that I intend on reading or working on reading, as the case is for at least one of these. So for the first prompt, you're supposed to find a book that focuses around a hero in education. And for this, I will be working on reading And the Band Played On by Randy Shilts. And the Band Played On is the deep dive into journalism around the HIV and AIDS epidemic. Randy Shilts was actually one of the first people to report on the AIDS epidemic, kind of before most mainstream news places were really paying any attention to it. So I thought this fit the prompt really well because he was one of the first people that was actually going out of their way to educate people on this problem that was heavily impacting marginalized communities. This book is also one of the books that's on my HIV and AIDS TBR, so I'm looking forward to being able to start on this. This is one of the ones that I wanted to read towards the beginning because it was kind of one of the first of its kind. The next prompt for the Heart-a-thon is to read a book about a hero in art. And for this, I'm going to read The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. This book focuses around the drag community in the 1980s, and that's the reason that I chose it for this art prompt. Drag queens have been on the cutting edge of style and culture in general. So much has come from the drag community, so I think that since that's what this focuses on, I know that there's a lot more in the plot beyond just drag, but this gives me an excuse to read this book, so I'm here for it. Next we have A Hero in Resistance. And for that, I'll be reading Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton. This is his autobiography. For those who don't know, Huey P. Newton was one of the organizers for the Black Panthers, so he definitely fits a hero of resistance. And then finally, the last prompt is A Hero in Technology, and for that I'm going to be reading An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This is a sci-fi book. From my understanding, there's alien technology, so that seems pretty cutting edge. But also, this says a whole lot about social media, and that is some technology that's really important to know about. So I think there are going to be some really innovative and important themes coming out of this book. Now, after that, we get into some of the events that are only happening within small sections of the month. Towards the beginning of the month, the Tome Topple is going on. And the point of the Tome Topple is to crack into some of the books that are 500 pages or longer. Now, I am really bad with big books. My attention span as of late has not been great, so it's been taking me a while to get through some things, which is why the book that I want to finish during the Tome Topple is Moving Politics. I've been reading this since March. I'm going to finish it. I haven't worked on it in a couple of months, but it's going to happen. If I read no other book this month, it's going to be this book. This focuses on the role of emotion in the organization ACT UP, which fought for people's rights around the AIDS epidemic. If you want to hear more about this, I did vlog my way through the first third of the book since I read it during the Zodiac-a-thon. Another book that I'm going to be working on during the Tome Topple is In the Band Played On, which I've already mentioned. This is the longest tome that I intend to work on, and I think it's the longest one that I own, assuming that we're not counting things like the complete works of Shakespeare. And then finally, the other tome that I want to work on during the Tome Topple is Stamped from the Beginning. Now, my original plan was to read this along with some people on Instagram, but that just simply did not happen, so I'm planning on working my way through some of it this coming month. And this fits on the bingo board for my most recently acquired tome, as well as a tome written by a Black author. And then finally, we have the History Challenge. And the point of the History Challenge is just to encourage people to pick up history books. And this takes place from the 17th through the 30th. Now, clearly, some of the books that I've already talked about definitely fit that. But I'm going to talk about some of the books that I am planning on focusing on specifically in this time frame. The first one of those is a book that I have already started but plan on continuing, and that is Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity. This would fit the bingo prompts for a macro history, as well as a book written by a Black or Indigenous person of color. Revolutionary Suicide is what I am planning on reading for the memoir prompt. And then I also plan on continuing In the Band Played On for the History Challenge as well. I do have 3 other books that are not already on my monthly TBR that I plan on getting to for the History Challenge. The first one of those is Tinderbox by Robert Fieldster. This is focused on the New Orleans Upstairs Lounge fire, which was an arson that was committed at the Upstairs Lounge, which was an LGBT bar. Several people ended up dying, and it barely made a blip on the news, even though more people had died in this arson than in a lot of the other fires that were occurring during the time, because this happened in the 70s, and New Orleans buildings weren't exactly up to fire codes. Next, I have March Book 2. I read Book 1 in February or possibly April. This book is partially memoir, partially history. This was written by Congressman John Lewis, and it focuses on the civil rights movement. And the final book that I have for the history challenge is Gifts of the Body. This covers the prompt for historical fiction as well as a book written by a female author. Now, I will say, I think all of these could technically fit a book for my favorite time period, maybe except for Black on Both Sides, just because that's a macro history, so that's maybe cheating. My favorite parts of history to learn at the moment are between the 60s and 80s, and I really enjoy learning about minority histories, and all of these fit that kind of niche as well. So that is my August TBR. Hopefully I'll get through or to most of these, but we'll see how it goes. Let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments and what you thought about them, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.